All right, hi Jeff, welcome. Are you familiar with a DUT?
No, I am not.
Okay, DUT stands for Design Under Test, and design verification engineers, they use System Verilog or Verilog, or even sometimes VHDL in order to create test benches. And these test benches are used to run stimuli to your DUT and see the outputs that come out from your DUT. And this whole process is just called verification. So I'll give you a quick run through of what we're going to be doing during this interview to try and resemble that type of experience. So I'm going to paste some code here for you. So here you have a transaction scoreboard class. It's unfinished, and essentially your task is to complete the received request and received response functions. The received request function is called when a new request arrives, and it should store the relevant data, such as a new address that's coming into the DUT that you can see in the diagram, associated with the same ID that's coming into the DUT. The received response function is called when a response is received from the DUT, and it should verify that the returned data matches the expected data retrieved by the get underscore ROM data, and that is AKA your address for the corresponding ID. Your implementation should handle, all right, yeah, for now, just are you familiar with what I just said? Do you have understanding of what I just said?
Yes. Just to clarify, so whenever we get an ID address pair being sent into the DUT, we get like a duplicate also sent into our transaction scoreboard class. Is that correct? Through the
Yes,
receive request method.
yes,
Okay, gotcha. And then when we get the ID data pair on the other side of the DUT, then that is also sent to the scoreboard through the receive response method.
yes.
Okay, yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
Okay, so whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and start.
Okay. Um, so a question. The the ID data pairs that we get as a response from the DUT, are they going to be in the same? Because I realized the question asked, or the question stated that we should also handle outstanding requests, right? So the requests we get on the response side, will they be in the same order as they were sent into the DUT?
Yes, they'll be in the same order.
Okay. So my thought, my thought process right now is, once we get an ID address pair from the received request method, I'm going to have some queue, maybe called prediction queue. And whenever I get this ID address pair, I'm going to add that into my prediction queue from the back. So I'm going to push back into the queue. And then every time I'm getting a request, I'm pushing it into that queue. And when I get an ID data pair on the response side, I'm going to pop from the front of that queue and then compare if the ID and the data are matching. And if the ID and the data match, then the maybe just print or what do you want me to do? Should I just print like a transaction passed, or do I throw an error, or what do I do if it passes?
Just
Oh, sorry, if
just
it fails.
if it fails, yeah, just have your monitor say that it's failing.
Okay. So okay, cool. So I guess I'll just display test failed. Sounds good.
Yeah, yeah, that
Okay.
works.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and create my queue first. And but before creating my queue, I'm going to create a structure called ID address, or yeah, ID address pair, because I'm getting these two in pairs. So I'm going to create a structure. Just type the structure first. So structure, um should I make it packed? Let's make it packed. And this structure is going to be it's going to contain an ID and a data pair. So I'm going to say bits 3. It's a 4-bit ID, so I'm going to say this, and bits 31 to 0 of data. So I have a packed struct. I'm just going to call this ID data as pair underscore t. All right. Oh, I spelled typedef wrong. So I have a struct that I've created, which is it's a pack struct, by the way, and it contains 2 members, an ID and a data. So whenever I get an ID and a data or an address on the request side, I'm going to first of all get the data corresponding to the address using the getFromData method, and then create this structure and add it into my queue. So my queue is going to be of type, or each element in my queue will be of type this. So I can go ahead then and create my queue. So ID data pair underscore t, prediction queue. Okay. So that's my queue. And yeah, I guess I'll go ahead and start implementing the request and response methods. So once I get an ID and an address, as I said, I am going to, since I guess I'm meant to use this method or this members, right? So I'm going to first of all store the ID I get into the current ID member. So store that there, and then my current data is get from data of the address that was passed in. And oops. Oh, yep. So I have my ID or my current ID and my current data. Now I need to create a structure from these 2 data, right? Of these 2 members. So I'm going to create an ID data pair, ID data pair, and I'm going to say ID data pair of ID. So I'm basically assigning this member to the current ID. And I'm also going to do the same for ID data pair of data is equal to my current data. So now that I have this ID data pair, I can then add it into my prediction queue. So prediction queue dot push back ID data pair. All right. Does this look good?
Yeah, looks good so far.
Okay. So now, so as of now, whenever a request is sent into the dot, my scoreboard is going to add that ID data pair into my prediction queue. And on the other side, I'm going to be waiting for an ID data pair from the response side. And then I just need to check that it matches with the first value in the prediction queue. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create an ID data pair, ID data pair, and I am going to assign it. So I'm going to assign my ID data pair to the prediction queue dot pop front. So this is going to pop the first element in my prediction queue, and I'm going to just set that into my ID data pair. And then I can check if the ID, yeah, if the ID is not equal to the predicted, or I can call this predicted pair. So instead of saying ID data pair, I can call it predicted pair. So if the ID that was passed into the response is not equal to my predicted pair.id, or if the data that was passed in is not equal to my predicted pair.data, meaning that we have a mismatch, right? So I can just display the test failed. There was a mismatch. Yeah. And I can also just return or exit. So this is basically going to break my function whenever the the ID data pair that I get does not match with what I'm predicting. And once if this is not the case, so if all of these are false, then it means they do match. So I can just display this ID data pair matches full stop transaction passed. So yeah. So that's my implementation of the response side. How does that look?
It looks good. Looks good. Nice.
Oh, I forgot to change
All
this
right.
to predicted pair as well. Predicted pair. Oops. Okay. How does that look? Good. Looks good.
Yep. All right.
Oh, semicolon. All right. Thanks. Thanks, Michael.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. I'll be in touch. Have a great day.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.